welcome to cubicat.com. My name is Mazir Sharifian and I'd like to help you with migrating from Adobe After Effects to the Foundry Nuke. Actually, what is explained in this tutorial is the general and technical differences between the two compositing applications and a quick overview in Nuke compositing. First of all, you might ask yourself, why should someone migrate from Adobe After Effects to the Foundry Nuke, and why not the opposite? Okay, the reason for this is that mostly Adobe After Effects handles both motion graphics and visual effects, but the Foundry Nuke usually works with just visual effects in a more professional way. So, if you're using After Effects as a visual effect artist and you're ready to have a better workflow in your projects, this video might help you. Now, let's start with general differences. The most obvious one is the price. The Foundry Nuke is so much more expensive than Adobe After Effects. So if you're a freelancer and you might be low in budget, just skip this tutorial. The other general difference, as mentioned before, is their professions. Yeah, profession. Let me explain it this way. You can use Adobe After Effects and the Foundry Nuke in both motion graphics and visual effects, and you might end up with the same results as well. So, where their professions come from? That's the way they handle things, which will be more explained later on. Just remember this: if you are a motion graphic designer, Adobe After Effects provides better tools for you. If you're a visual effects artist, the Foundry Nuke does. Another thing about the profession is that if you want to create or composite a 2D animation, After Effects is great, but for composite a 3D animation, Nuke. Let's dig deeper and get to some technical differences. I'm sure there are a lot of differences, but the most important ones are, one is the platform they're using and the other one is the 3D support. Let's talk about the platform and how they manage files. In Adobe After Effects it's layer based, and in the Foundry Nuke it's node based. So what is the difference and what's the purpose? Let me first tell you the difference. In After Effects you are introduced to layers and their stacking order, exactly like Photoshop, but in Nuke you are introduced with nodes and you need to decide which are to be connected. So what is the purpose of using node-based instead of layer-based, or maybe the opposite? Let me tell you a story and take you back when you started using Adobe After Effects. I'm sure in those days you were familiar with Adobe Photoshop. Do you remember when you wanted to have a gradient layer and you would be having it easy settled with a gradient tool provided for you, right? But when you wanted to do so in After Effects, it was a bit more complicated. You had to make a solid and then apply a ramp effect on it. So at first glance it was stupid, right? Why following these steps when Photoshop just had their tool for it? But later on, you realize that actually using ramp effect is much more easier than the gradient tool in Photoshop. Sure, it needs more time for applying, but it is editable afterwards, and you can change the gradient effect, or actually the ramp effect, anytime you want. Now you see, same thing happens between After Effects and Nuke. How making a simple composition of two objects in a layer-based environment is so much easier than a node-based one. But later on, when facing some real stuff, Nuke compositing would be much more easier. Let's just say, for a complicated composition, a layer-based platform is great, but for a more complicated composition, node-based could be more time saver. Another important technical difference is the 3D space. Of course, both applications handle 3D space, but Nuke handles real 3D space. It's true that in After Effects you can have some plugins such as Element 3D or a great integration with Cinema 4D. But believe me, changing orientations, shading, editing different passes of a 3D render is way too hard there rather than in Nuke. You can even create 3D geometries in Nuke. For example, you can create a semi-cylinder and put a texture on it and use it as a background for your scene. Okay, now a big FYI. I've just covered some general and technical differences between the two applications so far. There are a lot more powerful tools in the Foundry Nuke, which will surely surprise you, as some motion graphic features in After Effects already surprised you, but I think you're good to go for now. Okay, now that we have learned about some general and technical differences between the two applications and you're ready to migrate, let's start with the user interface and a quick workflow in the Nuke. For better understanding this episode, when I'm talking about some tools and panels in the Foundry Nuke, I will be referring to the After Effects one. The first thing you're going to mention is that as the Foundry Nuke starts, it automatically creates an untitled project, exactly like After Effects, which creates an untitled project already. Okay, now about the user interface. As you can see, it's more simple than Adobe After Effects. There are a lot of panels here, but here you can see that we've got our monitor here, exactly like monitor here. Let me create a composition and a solid. So we've got our monitor and timeline here, which are here. We've got our the toolbox here, which basically all of our nodes are located here, and you could say that for your toolbox here and the effects and presets here. So it is a combination of these two panels, the toolbox and the effects and presets. Now this panel is a combination of these two panels. Which means that we've got our library and our compositions at the same place here. In After Effects, we were used to import our files into this project panel and then add them to our compositions, but here it's the same place. Again, to make it more simple, we've got our properties panel, which is a combination of our changing parameters here and the effects control panel. So again, this is a combination panel of the effects control panel and the changing parameters here in our timeline. So more simple and at the same time more professional for compositing. Okay, now I'm going to import some files to see how it works. To import a file into the Foundry Nuke, all you need to do is to make a read node here. To make a read node, you'll go to this box and click the read node, or press the shortcut R for that. I'll press R and go to some elements so I can import them. For example, these two. I'll just import multiple files so you can see it's the same as the After Effects imports. Okay, now these are the images I want to composite. Actually, I'm going to create a simple composition so you will be seeing the process here. Now, I think you already know that instead of composition, which we used to say in After Effects when we would be creating a new composition, it would be calling it comp1, comp2, comp3. Here we've got our viewer. Now that I've imported some files to create new compositions, you could press Ctrl-I and it creates a composition. Don't mix that up, because Ctrl-I in After Effects would say that you want to import some files into your project panel, but here Ctrl-I means create a new composition, which is Ctrl-N in here, of course. Okay, I'll need that later, so I put it here. Again, as you can see, I've got my viewer here. I could change through them exactly like the compositions here. I could be changing the view of the current monitor showing the contents. To add a read node to a composition, first of all you need to select the composition by double clicking and then select your node and press the number you want. For example, I press number 1 and it connects this node into the viewer number 1 with the connection labeled 1. If I select another node and press 2, it connects with a connection labeled 2 to the current selected viewer. When I deselect these and press 1 or 2, it shows me the connection. But how to composite these two elements together? Because as you can see, I cannot see them together. As you already know that in After Effects it would be a lot more easier. You would be importing your files, and when you put them together in the same comp, it creates a composition already. But here, to create one, I would be needing to create a merge node. To merge layers, you would be needing to go to this tab and add a merge node. And as you can see, the key for that is M. And be sure to put the node beneath the foreground, because it has two sides, the A side and the B side. The B side is the background and the A side is the foreground. Of course, you can change the properties for that later, but as a default, the first node connected to the merge node is going to be set in the A side, which is the foreground. So I select my car, which is in the foreground, and press M. So it puts the car in A side of the merge node, and I put the background as the B side. Now I can press 1 when I select merge 1, this node actually, to be viewed in viewer number 1. The previewing here is sometimes it is a bit tricky, and you could see some misrendering in your monitor, but it's okay, it's going to be alright later. Now again, I want to change the location of this car. To do that, I need a transfer node. Now this time I'm going to search through all the nodes here. Sometimes you don't know the hierarchy of the node you want to select, or you don't know the key for that, so you'll just instead of pressing the shortcut key or going through these tabs to search for the selected node, you'll just press tab key on your selected node and type the name you want. So in this case we need a transfer node. I select it, and here we go. We've got our transfer node. Now I'm going to have a gizmo for that. I could change the location or rotation or scale of the selected node. Meanwhile, while we are doing these different nodes, you would be seeing a mess here. Actually, when you create something, starting by the viewer which is created already at the startup, you would be seeing the properties of each node here. So these are temporary views. You could close them all, and don't worry, they will be back by double clicking. For example, for transfer node, as you can see, the gizmo is disappeared by double clicking the panel and seeing the properties here. You would be seeing the gizmos on the monitor as well. So sometimes when it gets messed up here, just close all the panels and again double click the panels you want to show, change the values you want. To change the value of your scene, exactly like doing so here by clicking Ctrl K to change the composition settings, here the key for that is S. When you press S, you would be seeing the setup for your scene. Actually, I'm going to change the resolution of my scene to 1024, so it'll match the background image I'm using here. Okay, that's it. That's a simple composition. Now to compare that with Adobe After Effects, I'm going to have a competition between the two. Of course, for this simple composition, creating one in After Effects would be much more easier, but just see how it goes between the two. So I'll press R and import again to make it fair. I've deleted those two nodes to make it fair for both applications. To compete, I'll add a merge node. I set up my scene. can select this. The resolution is okay. I put a transfer node, put my car out of the scene, set a keyframe for that. Again, you can see how to keyframe the parameters here. I forgot to change the timeline, and here we go. We've got a 99 frames animation. To render that into disk, I'll need a write node. Yeah, you need a lot of nodes here. To do everything you want, you need a node for that. I press the last node which connects all the these nodes together, and press W to add a write node. Go here, I'll say location for that, and call this a test render Nuke. Make the file type here as well, so it creates a move file. To render that, I click render and assign a range of frames to be rendered. Okay, I hope you realize how much it took for this application. Now After Effects time. Import these two, create the composition, put the car inside, and voila, we are done here. I'll render it into my disk. Maybe, okay, again, QuickTime, and the animation is okay. Okay, it works. Test render, After Effects. This car is not going 100 kilometers per hour, but it's okay. It's okay. Again, it was a simple composition, so After Effects wins. Yay! For more complicated composition, Nuke is the way. Now that you know about the keyframing, a little bit about keyframing, about the rendering, and almost every basic ideas in the Foundry Nuke, let's check something else here, which is one of the most important technical differences between the two applications, which is the 3D space. To explain that, actually to explain 3D in every application, it will be a long story. So to make it short, I'm going to set up a simple 3D scene, so you would be actually seeing how it works in the Foundry Nuke. So I double click this viewer number 2, which is my comp2, actually, if you want to refer that to After Effects. And close all these properties panels, so I won't be seeing any gizmos. Now I'm going to set up a 3D scene. To create a simple geometry, you go to this tab, and in geometry I create a cube. To add a texture for it, I'll just go to this tab and create a checkerboard for that. Of course, you can assign pictures to your cube. Oops. Now in 2D scene, I won't be seeing my cube, my 3D cube, because it's not rendered yet. For a rendered cube, I will be needing a scanline render node. To do that, I will disconnect this, create scanline render node, and add my object to this node, and then add this to my viewer number 2. Now I can see my 3D element into 2D views. Before going to 3D view to set up my scene, just remember that the rounded shapes here in the node graph, they are 3D, and these shapes, as you can see, they are not 3D. They're 2D elements. So this cube is 3D, and you can differentiate that with this rounded shape. To change in the views, you would be pressing tab key here, not here, of course. With the selector node, it would be accessing these nodes. So here, I would press tab, and it changed the view. Actually, it happens here. To navigate through the 3D scenes, you could wheel up or wheel down with your mouse, or hold the middle mouse and hold the Alt key, and it's going to zoom in and zoom out, or dolly in or dolly out. To rotate through the 3D scene, you would be holding down the Alt key and left clicking to pan and tilt, right clicking, and here we go. We can navigate through the 3D scene. So I'll need a camera for that, so I can change the rendered view for my viewer. Of course, it's not going to assign the perspective camera I'm changing. It needs a camera. Again, it got a connection for that. I'll create a camera. Again, it's rounded shape. Assign this, and here we go. We've got our camera. With the gizmos I'll change the position and maybe put it up here. Not too much. Maybe here. I'll press Control, hold it down to change the gizmo for rotation. Maybe a view like that, or maybe here. Actually, maybe a little bit more depth. Something like that. From up here. So you see in 2D now I can change the location of my camera. Even I could do so in here as well, and it renders with this scanline renderer live. So again, you could close all the panels, double click on your camera node, and rotate and translate from here. Again, you would be seeing a background as well here. I could use this as my background, for example. So this is a simple 3D scene set with some 2D elements. That's it. That was the simple 3D scene. So you would be understanding the concept, the 3D concept here, which is, as mentioned before, a real 3D scene. You could be importing objects, 3D geometries by creating in 3D applications and then import them here. You could be importing animations. You could be importing different passes of a render here and manage them really smooth here. So you see, it's not a big difference than After Effects, the same concept. Now we can add nodes, change values, write them into disk, and basically have fun. Actually, one day After Effects rocked your world, but now Nuke is going to nuke your world, right? Don't forget to check other resources to learn more about the detailed features and compositing tools in the Foundry Nuke. And remember, I've just mentioned the very basic concepts of the application for you, so you will be having a nice migration from Adobe After Effects to the Foundry Nuke. Thanks again for watching this tutorial. Hope you have a nice trip. This is Mazir Sharifian from QBCAD.com. See you soon.